There are so many product books out there. If you are trying to become a product manager or you're already doing the job, you're constantly being told to read more frameworks, playbooks. This will make you a better product manager. And most of them are fine. But what I want to talk to you today about are 5 books that genuinely have changed the way I think about product. Not the best product books ever written, not necessarily the most popular ones, but the ones that I keep coming back to time and time again. And if I'm coaching someone that's stuck with a product challenge, I'll typically recommend these. Some are more practical, some are more philosophical. One of them's written as a story, and there's actually, in fact, one that I don't physically own. But all of them have helped me be better at product delivery, innovation, and working in complex organizations. So let me grab the first one. This is Business Model Generation by Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pina. At its core, this is a book about how organizations actually work, not just the products that they build. And in it, it describes the business model canvas. It's a really simple way to describe who you're creating value for, what value you're offering, how that value is delivered, and how the organization sustains itself while doing it. I actually learned about this book before I became a product manager. I used to work for a business incubator for student startup ideas. So people would come with their ideas and they need some business coaching and support to take it forward. And it was some of those coaches that guided me to this book. And I realized that those businesses, they rarely fail just because of the idea being bad. Often it's the structure of how someone's going about delivering that idea that's really important. Now that I work in product management, this has really formed how I think about the ideas I'm working on, because often we're focused so much as product managers on delivering the right features into a backlog and getting them out to customers. But actually, it fits into a wider ecosystem. What's the real value that we are trying to serve to customers? How does what we're delivering as a product fit with the wider ecosystem? And so this is a great way to help me come back to that sometimes. It's really visual and it's super helpful. The next one isn't really a traditional book. It's actually the IBM Design Thinking Handbook. In some circles, design thinking gets a lot of criticism. It's based on a bit of a misconception, in my view, that this is all about workshops for the post-its, lots of people coming together and then designing by committee. And the criticism is often that the real highly skilled crafts, those people that might come from different disciplines who know how to build and design great products, are put to one side. But that isn't really fair. That's not what this is all about. What design thinking can be, when it's done well, is a way to structure conversations. It helps teams gather different insights from those experts, make sense of the messy problems, and then move towards better decisions. One of the reasons that I value the IBM design thinking approach is that they make it really practical. They have an online toolkit full of exercises to help you frame and structure conversations. And while this kind of physical toolkit might be really hard to get hold of, you can just use their online toolkit and have access freely to those resources. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to have a look at that. I think all of us as product managers get stuck sometimes. Lots of people are giving us different insights, different perspectives on a problem. And sometimes you need a bit of help to think about, how do you guide this conversation, bring these people together, work through the messiness, and come up with a constructive way forward. And what's great about tools like this and design thinking overall is it can give you some great frameworks to do that. So I definitely encourage you to have a look at any of these kind of toolkits, but the IBM one's a pretty good one for me. This next one is User Story Mapping by Jeff Patton. And if you haven't come across this book before, what it basically does is it helps think about your backlog as a user journey. User story mapping helps teams visualize the end-to-end experience, see how functionality might build over time, and prioritize based on their user value. I was taught about this book by an Agile coach about 7 or 8 years ago. And at the time, I was working with a co-located team out of a studio. And we had these massive whiteboards where we mapped out the whole user journey in these different feature cards. And we prioritized what we wanted to work on and how that might evolve over time. And what you could suddenly see is where there were gaps in our experience, how that could evolve over time, and also what we didn't need to do yet, but might work on in the future. Jeff Patton sums it up perfectly when he says, story mapping helps you see the big picture. And most product teams I work with just don't do this. And honestly, I think they're missing out because it is so great if you can do this kind of activity, especially in person, because it's a brilliant way to bridge design thinking and what you're actually going to deliver. This is Sprint by Jake Knapp from the Google Ventures world. This book essentially lays out a structured way to take a big idea or a big problem, explore the idea, test it with real users in a very short space of time. Now, I'll be honest, I don't read this book often, but the principles behind it are something that stuck with me and I use almost every day. I work a lot in early stage innovation where things are ambiguous and uncertain. And what Sprint really gives teams is a focus and a way to move forward to test out an idea very quickly. Jake Knapp describes it as a shortcut to learning, and I think that's brilliant. What we shouldn't be doing, but we're quite guilty of often, is endlessly debating what's the right thing to do. But instead, you should just get out there, prototype, test your idea with users before you commit it to code. And this is what that book summarizes, and it describes a great way of doing that. Okay, the last one is the Phoenix Project. And this is the one I mentioned earlier that is written as a story. It is a brilliant book, but it's one that I don't actually own physically. Instead, I listened to it as an audiobook. And for me, that felt just right. The Phoenix Project is a fiction, but it's all about a very real problem: how large organizations struggle to deliver value. It focuses on bottlenecks, silos, overloaded teams, and that one person who knows how everything works. I'll be honest, it took me years to finally get around to reading this. Someone had recommended it to me, and I must have spent maybe 2 or 3 years going, yeah, I'll get around to that eventually. But it wasn't a priority. But when I finally did, it felt so uncannily familiar to me. There's a line in the book that I think really summarizes the principle behind it. Improving daily work is even more important than doing daily work. If you're like me and you've worked in some large organizations, a lot of this will hit home. You'll notice that these companies, they get really complex over time. It can therefore become very hard to deliver new products, new services, and value quickly and iteratively. And what this tells a story of is a real person or a fictional person that goes through implementing change. And they do this by really understanding the problems, working out ways to fix them, and not just applying some agile frameworks blindly. I think it's a really great way to see how top practitioners work and they think about problems and why the Agile Manifesto can have a real impact. Unfortunately, I've got some bad news after all of that. None of these books are going to magically make you a better product manager. But what they will do, hopefully, is open up your eyes to some different ways of thinking and different ways of working. And there's a reason why I've come back to this particular set over and over again. And if you found that useful, then hopefully this video and other videos on this channel where I talk about my experience as a product manager might be helpful too. If you did like it, please like the video and think about subscribing to the channel. And although I've shown you my books that I really like coming back to, I'd love to know in the comments below, what are your product management favorites? What books have really helped you on your journey too? Maybe we can make that into a bit of a recommendations list. And until the next video, happy reading, and I'll see you soon.